Ladies and gentlemen, holy shit. This is another episode of an Evolved Review. We are back. I am your host, James Caleb Kitchens, as always, and I'm joined by none other than Caleb Stovall. Welcome back to the show, man.
Hey, what's going on, man? Yes, holy shit, it has been so long.
Yeah, I mean, there was just one thing after another.
Yeah.
We took a break after the end of season 3. We decided, holidays, New Year, everything going on, all that stuff. Cool. We get to the beginning of the new year. You're busy. I'm busy. Work stuff. And then I ended up getting COVID. You ended up getting COVID. We ended up having to deal with that nonsense.
Yeah.
But everybody is alive and well. We are back. We're
Yes.
kicking off season 4. We're not dead. Your podcast player of choice is not broken. This is actually a new episode of an Evolved Review. Yeah, man. We're glad to be back. I know that there's been so many news items that I really wanted to talk about that would come up, and then it's like you got to stick with it and you got to get this stuff. So today is going to be State of Wrestling, man.
Yeah.
I know you're excited to be back. We were just talking about that off mic.
Oh, dude, you know me. I'm always down to talk anything pro wrestling. So
Yeah. So we got a lot tonight. Honestly, we wanted to kick this off with just kind of talking about things that are happening in wrestling today. I mean, there is so much news. We're going to talk about a little bit of, a little bit of all of it, really. And, we don't really have an agenda here, but we are going to review up and coming. We're going to hit the Hammerstein Ballroom show that GCW did. So we're going to take a look at that. And we've got plans to do a lot of stuff. And we were just talking off mic. GCW is coming to Atlanta. And
yes,
we're talking about going to that show and then covering it. I'm excited. There's a lot of stuff happening in wrestling today. A lot of stuff coming up.
yeah, man. There's been so much, and I mean, um, like you said, it's been one thing after another. There's been just so much going on, and I think that I even told you this off air before we started. That I think this is the most wrestling news like we've ever covered and everything like that. I think this is like the most wrestling news that I've seen going on in forever. Like
It's
probably in like 10 years.
it's a lot. I mean, last year, we saw a lot of the big AEW signings, and we kind of got into this rhythm of, okay, who's the next big AEW signing? And now, and if you go back and listen to those episodes, I predicted this. I'm gonna pat myself on the back here. That we were gonna see that AEW roster eventually it was gonna bust if you keep packing stuff in. And so we've started to see AEW's first round of releases. And I know that's weird to say because we see releases from WWE all the time. I mean, John Cena even
Oh my
chimed in.
God.
Yeah, John Cena even chimed in on this, and he said when he came up they did releases twice a year, and now they're doing it more often. There was a lot of times there was really about a year and a half, 2 years there where WWE did very little releasing, right when AEW came around,
Mm-hmm.
and then once AEW kind of established itself, and Vince kind of saw what they were about, he just started releasing people like crazy. Everybody that they were holding on to because they didn't want them to go elsewhere. And now it's like, well, they can't really take anybody other than who they've already got. So yeah, what do you think about the AEW roster and some of these contracts that are coming up that are expiring?
I mean, yeah. Look, people are gonna anytime there are releases in wrestling, it's the worst thing in the world for
Right.
people. It's like it makes all of this news, but it's like, guys, I'm sorry, like just the same thing in business. Sometimes, it's not even necessarily a bad thing. It's just a hey, it's time to move on. Like, you're not going anywhere here right now. We don't have anything for you. And look, I used to think that statement was BS sometimes, that like we don't have anything for you. But actually, seeing how the business is run at times, I'm like, well, no, I can actually see how that is, because at times, like, I'll look at a character and be like, I can't think of how to book this person, kind of thing.
Right. I mean, as a former booker, I guess that's the first time on air I got to say that. As a former booker, yeah, I mean, I would sit down and look at this stuff, and it's like, here's my thing, and this is without drawing it out. This is the long and skinny of it. If Jay Lethal is wrestling Ricky Starks on Dark, there's not a place on Dynamite for Marco Stunt.
There you
I'm
go.
I'm sorry.
There
I'm
you
sorry.
go. And
You
I
know.
mean, is anyone really that sad for Marco Stunt to go?
Well, I don't think anybody's really that sad, but the thing about it is there was quite a bit there was a big kind of stink about it when he got signed. There was a lot of people making different comments and just different stuff when he got signed, and I think you know yeah they held on to him, but signing him was a huge mistake in the first place, and because I mean he looks like a child out there, and I don't know Marco Stunt personally. Every opinion that I have of Marco Stunt is professional.
Yeah,
It's a business opinion,
yeah.
and from a business standpoint, I don't think he's a good investment. I don't think he's safe. This is not going to become the shit all over Marco Stunt show, but
No, no, no. And I get what you're saying, but I mean, sometimes it does have to be done. It sucks, but it does have to be done.
right,
However, it's not like there are no other places for these people to go, because
right,
if, as you've seen, there are several promotions now that are doing quite well for themselves. I look, I don't know how everything is doing in terms of business or whatnot, but as far as a place to go and apply and like wrestle, there's MLW, there's NWA, and of course, right now, I think this is probably the third biggest promotion right now. Not in the United States. We're not going to talk about the world, but in the United States, it's got to be GCW right now.
at least as far as hype, you know. And
Yeah,
and here's the thing about it, and I was talking to Gary Lamb, who's the promoter at Southern Honor Wrestling, about this yesterday. GCW has the right idea. If you want to tour the country and put on wrestling with some of the top names, there is money to be made. You're not going to be filthy rich, right? But you could make money off of it and be comfortable. And that's the important thing about the sweet
yeah,
spot of indie wrestling. If you're in pro wrestling to be this, star that can afford like a Randy Orton style RV where you can drive around the country in supreme comfort with your entire family, by all means, you got to look like $1 million. You
mhm,
got to be at least 6'4", and you got to go work for Vince.
yeah,
Or alternatively, you could be the tip top guy in AEW, because I know right now those EVPs are making pretty good.
yeah.
I'm sure that people like Adam Cole are probably making pretty good. Uh,
Adam Page.
yeah, I mean, well, he's EVP, but
Oh, well,
the top stars, CM Punk obviously. I mean, he was famous elsewhere, but
yeah,
if you want to have that sort of fame and notoriety, if you want to main event WrestleMania, yeah, you got to be 1 in 1 million, and you got to go work for Vince, or you got to be a top guy on AEW if you're trying to make some serious bank. But a lot of people didn't get into wrestling to be super famous. A lot of people today, this is not the 90s where Hulk Hogan comes up to you at the gym and is like, "Hey man, you want to get into this pro wrestling? We can fool some people into buying tickets because they think we're fighting." Ha ha ha. Like, it's just not that. That's not what
yeah,
this is. This is people who grew up watching it and they're passionate about it and they love it. And for them to not have to go do a 9 to 5 and be able to pay their bills doing this is an
yeah.
incredible thing, and that's what they want.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I've said that the wrestling business needs. And it's not fair. It hasn't been fair that almost for 20 plus years now, you know, there's only been one place that you can do that. Now that there's other places that you can do that, that's a good thing. Not everyone's going to be on national television or anything like that, but they can damn sure come close.
Yeah, and I know what things cost when from running shows for over a decade. I go and look at it. Okay, this guy is about this much. This guy's about this much. This girl's about this much. The venue's this. If there's a commission, you're gonna have to pay this. You sit there
Yeah.
and look at it, and I mean, it's not hard to multiply that out by the ticket price and kind of see where the money is being made, if any. And you've got to be a good promoter. You've got to have, honestly, as someone who booked prominently in two pretty large promotions, I can tell you that the booking job at this point is not as important as the promotion. It's not as important as the social media team.
Yeah.
That is where you're going to create a lot of hype. It's not as important as your production. Now, obviously, if you're booking talent that can't work and can't put on a good show, that's not going to do you any favors, right? But it doesn't take a genius to look at somebody who's famous for being a pro wrestler and then book them on your show.
Like here, could I kind of see what you're saying is like, how I'm sure, one of your favorite podcasts to listen to is 83 Weeks, correct?
It is. Although, and I haven't shared this with you, my world is very quickly become like my favorite one to listen to.
Yes, that is my favorite one by far. That's a whole nother story. But on 83 Weeks, right? Eric Bischoff will say in about all of the episodes that story, that they have to come up with good stories and they have to be able to book like this. And I sit there and I go, time out, Bischoff. You know as well as I do that you can write out the greatest storyline in wrestling history. You can write it out for 6 months and be like, this is exactly the way that I'm going to go. Guess what? That never happens. It never draws out the exact way that you want it to, because there's all of this other things that people do not take into consideration when it comes to that. They don't take into consideration injuries, how big someone is over, or how big someone is, how over someone is and stuff like that. You start pushing a guy and it's like, oh, wait a minute, the audience is not reacting to him. They're not reacting to any of this. We can't do this. It's not going to work, kind of thing. Like, there's all of this other things that people do not take into consideration, right?
Yeah. And I agree with Eric though most of the time, because it
Right.
does matter. It does matter for AEW. Like, there might be people at AEW that don't think it matters, but the whoever's doing the booking, if it's Tony Khan, whatever, that's the most important job at AEW right now.
Well,
But I'm saying it doesn't matter for GCW. I'm saying it does not matter for the the shows that are traveling the country. If you're not if your main source of income isn't your TV show, if your main source of income is the gate from where you're traveling around the country,
yeah.
then the booking doesn't matter that much. If you can get somebody on the poster that'll bring people in, and you got a huge social media presence, and you got the hype, which is what GCW really has, is they have the hype.
Yeah.
Then that's where you start to to see where the booking does not matter as much. But I would say that for the if your television show is your primary product, then it is the most important job. I agree with you. It doesn't always pan out, but you have to be able to pivot as a booker, and that's one thing that Tony Khan is terrible at.
No, I agree with that, and I mean that can be another discussion for another day. Like, but I agree with that. But listen, you were asking about the contract releases and stuff like that. I just think that's going to happen. It's going to happen eventually. And the people that didn't get used are going to cry saying, listen, we can't. This is what I cannot stand about the wrestling internet, though. is just because someone goes on the internet and says, I wasn't used properly or I wasn't used at all. This person doesn't see this or anything like that. Doesn't mean that we should necessarily listen to every single word that person says.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of validity to that, especially because, I mean, say what you want, but Tony Khan, he's not releasing these people early.
Yeah.
If he contracted somebody for 3 years, 2 years, whatever, then yeah, I mean, and that contract ends, they're not under any obligations to renew that contract. I mean, and honestly, just being playing here, I'm not trying to turn this into the fuck Marco Stunt show, but Marco Stunt, if I was in TK's position, I would have released him a month in when I realized that he was going to be a glorified cheerleader.
I mean, yeah, look, I think that he worked in terms of with the Jurassic Express when it was the three of them. I thought that, okay, that works, but you definitely should not necessarily have him under contract.
Now, what I don't agree with, and I don't want to turn this into a big thing, but where Tony Khan really fucked up was now infamous tweet about Big Swole. Um, I don't want to go too far into that situation. What's that?
What did he tweet?
Basically, so there was an article where she did a post, AEW interview where
Yeah.
she talked about a lack of representation in AEW,
Yeah, I saw
particularly
that.
minorities, particularly African Americans. And at no point in this interview did she speak badly about Tony Khan or AEW or anything like that. And this was actually New Year's Eve. My phone was blowing up. People were like, please, someone take Tony Khan's phone from him. But my phone was blowing up about it, and he got into this Twitter battle where he was like, "We have this many people of color at AEW," and I was like, "Dude, you're not doing yourself any favors." And then he went on to say that she wasn't there because her wrestling isn't good enough, and that to me, say what you want about Vince McMahon, but that man has never, ever, ever come out and said that one of his talents couldn't wrestle. And the reason for that is because that makes you look like a complete dumbass for hiring them in the first place.
Well, yeah.
I mean, if you can go back and look at it, two
Well,
years ago, Tony Khan was on and on about how good she was. And
yeah.
then she said something that you don't like, that's critical, and now you're saying that she's not a great wrestler.
He
And
does do that. He is quick to shoot off at someone.
yeah,
I've noticed that.
yeah, and I don't, and this is not relevant. He's not wrong. I don't think she's a particularly fantastic wrestler. I might get some heat for saying that on the air. Whatever. That's my opinion. I've met her on a couple of occasions. I'm sure she's a lovely person. She's married to one of the greatest wrestlers on the planet. I don't think she's particularly on the level that of the talent that needs to be in AEW. But I will also say that if she's not good enough to be there, neither is 85% of their women's roster.
Well, no, I agree with that. And we talk about booking decisions. There is a lot of booking decisions where I'm just like, I don't understand why. Like, look, I'm not critical, as you know, of some things like other people are. Because I think, look, you have no idea what's going on. You don't know where they're planning to go or something like this. So, that's neither here nor there. But when it's obvious stuff that even I have to be like, okay, I have to call this out. Like, why are you not doing this kind of thing? For one thing, I don't understand why they are still like, for the life of me, cannot figure out why they will not push Thunder Rosa as the main fucking star.
I,
Please,
I
someone
I'm
answer.
tired of I'm tired of saying it. You know,
Because look, here's the thing. I was watching when they were doing the TBS championship, the new women's championship that they're doing. I'm sitting there just like, okay, it'll be Thunder Rosa versus Jade Cargill, and if Thunder Rosa comes up short in it, I'm not gonna be that pissed because I get what they're trying to do or whatnot. But then I realized she didn't even make it to the final. She got
right?
before the final, and it was Ruby Shoho.
Yeah,
Ruby Shoho, I'm gonna get heat for this. Is not that great.
she's not
All
at
right.
all.
He's not someone that you hook the whole wagon to.
Yeah,
Like you just don't. Britt Baker, okay, I get why she is the champion and I get why she is the top dog right now because she is literally the only one other than Thunder Rosa. There are two others that have the potential: Anna Jay and Chris Statlander.
agreed.
And,
Yeah,
and and those are like the other two that have the potential. Other than that, maybe I'll throw Red Velvet in there as well. I like her. She's pretty good. But other than that, there's nobody else in that women's division. And they need to like beef it up. I don't understand why they don't go out and get more women. Like there's several women in Impact Wrestling that I guarantee you are begging for a phone call, which
yeah,
is which is Jordan Gracie for one thing. Like I don't know why, if you have a women's division, period, you don't go, hey, we need you. We
right.
need you. You are amazing. And then Rosemary could be another one. There were several other like Kiera Hogan, who has been in AEW, but they're not doing anything with.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, you can go back and look at old episodes of this, and we've you know we've talked to we're blue in the face about AEW's women's division, and I mean, has it improved a little bit? Yeah, over the years,
Yeah,
but that's just like because we've upgraded from two, like just you've got two Japanese wrestlers that are wearing the same color gear and they're wrestling in front of an American audience, and nobody in that audience knows who the hell they are except for the ultimate like New Japan super nerds, right?
they're
That's
not
not going to draw.
they're
It's
not even from New Japan.
it was never going to draw, and that's the thing is like, AEW has to walk this thin line where they try to cater to their super audience, which are these like people who are just these complete marks for Kenny Omega, Cody Rhodes, the Young Bucks, and think that that style of wrestling is amazing, and they don't want to be told stories, and they don't like anybody who can't tell the difference between a suicide dive and a tope suicida, right? That and like I've said this before, you can fairly judge any AEW live audience by how they react when Jim Ross comes out. If they go ape shit, it's going to be a good show. If he doesn't get a reaction when he comes out, or it's mixed, then fuck that crowd. And it's been a bad show every time. Every time I've ever seen that happen. Now they don't always show him come out, so you don't always get to experience that. But speaking of, man, we do got to talk about Dynamite from just a few days ago.
Yes. Uh,
Um,
I was so as you know, I can't watch it live because of my
I
work.
don't. I can't either. So
So I have to watch it either the next day or the day after that or something like that. And I was seeing Facebook posts, and I don't really care anything about spoilers or anything like that necessarily all the time, but I was seeing a bunch of Facebook posts, and there were people that were raving about the show. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, well then this must be pretty good. So then I went and I finally watched it on Hulu. And man, I got to tell you, that was probably one of the best, if not the best Dynamite that they've done from front to back.
it was an incredible show. I'm going to tell you, they have a very good tendency of starting the show off really hot,
Yeah.
and WWE fucks that up so bad. I mean, the thing is, WWE historically has almost never done that. I remember back in the Raw day, like Triple H's title reign type days,
Oh
when
god.
they had the big gold belt every single week, and this is when I was watching Raw religiously. Every
Yeah.
single week, Raw started with a promo.
Mhm.
long ass, drawn out promo. Either the top babyface or the top heel or something like that, or Vince McMahon or Eric Bischoff or whatever. And this is the era when I loved wrestling. But it was like every time Monday Night Raw, it starts off with some angle that references the main event or sets up the main event, and then you go to commercial and you come back, and it's usually like a tag match or like a jobber, like, it's nothing really exciting. And there would be exciting stuff on the show back then, but it was build, you know. And that format gets old when you do it every week.
Yeah.
They do a tremendous job of just opening Dynamite with, you have to be here, you cannot miss this. This is something very exciting, and I have to applaud them for that. But and it's got to be doing good things for their ratings too, because you turn it on and immediately it takes you in. It's not this, okay, well, we're gonna do some really cool shit in 2 hours, and you better be here for it, but you got to hang on till then, And the danger of that, though, is there are some episodes of Dynamite where they've done this, and they don't have a follow up for the main event. There's been
Yes,
several times where the main event has felt way lesser than what they opened the show with.
I agree. Both Brian Danielson and Adam Page fights.
Right, and then not to mention the Omega and Danielson when they did in New York.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And really, I think I thought a lot of that though was due to you know, not having the right match order.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, I went a couple months there where I watched Dynamite like religiously every single week.
Yeah.
When they put Page over clean on Danielson, I have not watched it until this episode, and I only watched it because we were doing this podcast.
Did you not like that they put Page over clean?
Hated it. I absolutely hate it because, like, it you got to admit that the storytelling just hit a brick wall right there, because
Well,
the judges were a red herring. I knew they were not going to do a screwball finish because they hate that.
yeah.
But I thought they should have done something. They should have done something to preserve the legitimacy of Bryan Danielson. And I think them putting Page over clean, I just think the storyline just hit a brick wall.
See, here's my thing with Page's run as a champion so far. He's had three incredible matches, both of his with Danielson and his with Omega. I I'm not going to deny that. The problem that I have is when they brought in Danielson, I thought Danielson is so hot right now. You need to just have him be your babyface champion for a little bit,
Right.
because clearly the crowd wants to see Danielson. They want to see CM Punk as well. Like, yes, sometimes they might. And then here was what I didn't understand. Why did all of a sudden, like, this is what Vince Russo would do, kind of thing. Like, why did Danielson go for about 2 months, right? Say about 2 months being a complete baby face, and then just all of a sudden he goes and challenges Page, and it's like, oh, he's a heel now.
Yeah.
Like,
And
wait, why?
and he's trying so hard to be a heel, and even and he gets booed when he talks, when he gets on the mic and says, this town sucks and these people suck and I'm gonna break your hometown hero's legs, and yeah, he gets booed when he says those things.
Well, anybody will get booed saying those kind of things, but
Right,
that
it's cheap, it's low hanging fruit, it's cheap heat.
but I don't think that, like, the crowd doesn't want to boo Danielson,
They don't.
right?
They don't boo when his music hits. They cheer
Nope.
when his music hits. They cheer when he gets in the ring. When he kicks people, they yell yes. When and here's the other thing too. He doesn't fight dirty.
Mm-mm. He doesn't. He and that was the thing with his ROH World Title run. He never did anything underhanded. It
Right.
was literally it was just because he was an asshole. that
Right.
people didn't like him. And that he would here's the thing too. He would intentionally wrestle boring. Like he would put on a headlock like every time to stop the momentum of like, the guy that he was wrestling and stuff like that. And the crowd would boo and he's just like, I don't care. I'm winning the matchup.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so
and it worked. It worked there, but he's too over and too famous now to pull that off.
well he is. But the thing is like, to me, I'm sitting there like, clearly everyone wants to cheer Danielson. They should have had him beat Omega. And if they really wanted to push Page, they should have had Page beat some people. He hasn't beaten anyone before getting the world title of notice.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
the thing I've noticed that when with listening to Jim Cornette at times, and obviously he says it wrong at times, but I mean, whatever. But listening to him, hell, listening to Arn Anderson's podcast as well, and listening to Jeff Jarrett's podcast, if you're going to have someone go for the world title, or you're going to have someone try to make your title of significance, you have to have them beat people. You have to have them not just beat people, but beat people of notice. Like Page can't just beat, say, he can't just beat Jungle Boy one day and then just all of a sudden go and face Bryan Danielson or Kenny Omega for the world title. It's like, no, he has to beat some more people. He has to show that like people want to see this and they want to see him chase that ultimate goal kind of thing.
Yeah. He was tag champion. He argued with Kenny a bunch. He lost to Kenny a bunch. Got beat up a lot, and then challenged Kenny unsuccessfully. Then he left for a few months, came back, won a ladder match, and then became the world champion. And that's the whole Tony Khan. We go full circle back to TK not being able to pivot. And, they
Yeah.
were bound and determined to pay off their long term storytelling. Brother, laying out 2 years worth of shit and just saying, I'm going to stick to this no matter what, that's not long term storytelling. Long
Yeah.
term. Long term storytelling would be like, if Page, lost to Danielson as a face, worked his way back up through the roster
Mhm.
while Danielson feuds with Punk, loses the title to a heel Punk because CM Punk as a heel would have worked way better than Bryan.
I agree, but if anyone, here's the thing. I think if you really want to do something different and you really want to gain some traction, I think the person that you need to have as your champion and be the biggest asshole ever, MJF.
Yeah, I mean, and that's coming, but they don't need to pull the trigger too soon on that.
True. This is very true, and I agree. Maybe even get even more heat on him. But I think, I mean, yeah, I can see Punk being a heel and stuff like that. But I definitely think that they should have pivoted and gone with Danielson, because to me he's too hot right now. Clearly, people don't want to boo him. They want to cheer for him. They know every time. See, Bryan Danielson has pretty much done this. He's pretty much made it to be like this is how much of a draw he is. Whenever you see Danielson's name on the card, automatically you're like, all right, this is going to be a good match. We're going to see a good match because this guy does not put on bad matches.
Yeah. Speaking of AEW's booking, I just got to say, the whole deal with Shawn Dean beating MJF with the DQ and Punk and everything, that was some of the most genius booking that I've ever seen. I mean, that angle alone was incredible. So whoever thought that up and whoever came up with that, kudos to you, because it was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant.
Yes, it was. I love it. I can't wait for them to settle this feud. It's gonna be good. Like I've liked how they've done this feud, dude. I will say that they've done really good with this one.
It has been incredibly well done. So
Yes.
my
Now,
hats
what?
off to them.
Now you said that they like to start the show off hot. then I take it like, dude, my jaw dropped during that ladder match several times.
The
That
the the cutter where he jumped off the other ladder.
oh my god.
I mean, that's one of the most. I mean, okay, so just doing that spot, I'm absolutely sure that someone's done it, right?
I'm sh-
Um, Rob Killjoy's probably done it, but I would bet money that no one has done it that smooth on national television in front of a good production team that captured it perfectly. That shit was insane. I mean, it was one of the best spots I've ever seen. Not because it was, I mean, yes, it was a nut spot, but the perfection that it was delivered with,
yes.
that's where it really comes in because it was safe and it looked incredible. And I'm not a huge fan of wrestling always looking really smooth. It ain't ballet. But
Yeah.
damn, that
I
was a well executed spot.
no, I like it being smooth in this case. Like
Yeah,
uh,
if you're gonna do something fucking dangerous, you know, like, oh, I don't know, go through a table on the outside of the ring and not pay attention to day 2 of wrestling school, which is don't try to catch yourself with your hands. We had to bring that shit up. But I'm done. I'm done.
yeah, no. I agree. Like, because Luchasaurus apparently got criticized by Jim Cornette for that, and I was like, it's not Luchasaurus's fault. He literally
Right.
performed the move like you were supposed to.
Right, dude. It's a table. Land on it. Don't try to catch yourself.
I don't know what. Maybe Phoenix thought that he was like closer to the ground than what he thought. I don't know, but he. I saw that. I was like, oh my god.
That was one of the worst things I've ever seen, and how he got away with that and didn't break anything. I've said for years that the man is not human.
I've said that too. Like, he did,
Yeah.
dude. When we saw them in Atlanta and he did that spot with Omega, I was not expecting it, and like when I saw it, I just went, "Oh my god!" Like, dude, he is. He's insane. But I don't know, man. That ladder match, that was incredible. And then, dude, the lights out match.
Yeah.
Oh my god, if I wasn't a fan of Orange Cassidy or Adam Cole already, this match made me a fan of them like again. It was so good.
There's a lot of people that think that Adam Cole is being poorly used. And, to that, I would say if you're going to commentate on the wrestling business as if you are a business analyst, you know what I mean? It's one thing to say as a fan, I really wish, I'm a big fan of Adam Cole and I wish that he got this opportunity, that opportunity. Okay, cool. But if you're trying to be critical of the business aspect of it, or you're trying to sound like an insider, okay, what should Adam Cole be doing? Sure. I mean, I guess he could have been in that ladder match, for the TNT title. He could have faced either one of those guys. He could still in the future. That'd be a fantastic match. I'm a huge fan of Adam Cole. I would love to see him wrestling Adam Page.
Yeah.
I would love to see him wrestling Danielson on a regular basis. However, he's been booked very solidly in the time they've had him, other than the one time that he was on Dark, which I literally almost vomited when I read that. Um, could they use him a little better? Yeah, but I don't think it's atrocious enough to be complaining about it because the man has been in a storyline or a prominent angle from the day he stepped in the building, and he should
And
be.
and isn't that what everyone wants?
Yeah,
Is for them to be featured in prominent stories, but it's like here's my thing, and that's where I get so pissed off with wrestling fans online because it's like, look, you say like, okay, WWE's not using this guy enough, or so then they go somewhere else and then they get used in storylines, but it's like, well, if they're not going for the title, then they're not being used right. Or if they're not doing this, then they're still not being used right. And I'm like, wait a minute. You just wanted them to be used at
Right.
least.
Yeah, I mean, if Adam Cole had stayed around and gone to Monday Night Raw,
Oh, he'd have been buried.
yeah, I mean, he'd be jobbing out to whoever the fuck right now. Is it Roman Reigns? Is that who's, you know? You know what? Let's pivot. Let's take a shit on WWE. We haven't
Oh,
done
God.
that in months.
Yeah.
I can't tell you what's going on over there because I haven't fucking watched it. We're gonna talk about the Forbidden Door, but before we get to that, let me just say, I love the Royal Rumble. I think it's a great pay per view. We reviewed the '92 Rumble, and it
Yes.
was amazing.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, man. Fuck this year's, and this is why. Uh, there's there's all this hype about who are they gonna get, and I think a lot of it has to do with like with Spider-Man, with No Way Home making all this money. I think somebody in WWE's room of Hollywood writers went, "Oh, what if we did that in the Royal Rumble?" And it's like it's dumb, right? I think there'll be some hits. I think Jericho will be in it, and I think that will get a massive pop. Yeah, I do. I think they're gonna get Jericho for it, um, because he's a WWE alumni. It's a big deal. Tony Khan will not tell him no under any circumstances. Um, I think they'll do it. I like that Mickey James is in there. I like that she's gonna have the title with her. I think that's cool. But
Oh, that might be where we disagree.
well, before you go into that though, let me just say that ultimately, I don't give a fuck though, because whoever wins this Rumble, it's going to probably be someone super predictable, and they will not be put over on either Lesnar nor Reigns. They will lose at Mania. It will be the same old shit. I am beyond tired of it.
Well, that I can agree with. Here's okay. Here's where I think the Forbidden Door is a cool concept, but is not at the same time. Okay. This is where I don't agree with Mickey James having the Impact uh, title with her or the Knockouts title. Because what you are basically saying a little bit in terms is you're saying then that, okay, well, guess what? Our Knockouts title then is not as important as then to try to headline WrestleMania.
Unless she
Therefore,
wins.
now if she wins, then that would create some buzz. I'll
However,
that.
however, now, and this would be the smart thing to do, I think, from a purely from a promotional standpoint, because that shit would draw some money. But here's the thing: you got to realize what's worse. Your champion goes out. So there's three options here they could do if they're going to use her, because
Yeah.
she could have said no, of course. But the options, if she's going to say yes, you can either have your champion go out there without their title, which means that you're the Knockouts champion, but not in WWE. In WWE, you're just whatever that character is that they own, right? And I
Yeah.
think that's a bad option. You can come out with the title and you can lose in the Rumble in a fluke and go over the top rope. Losing
Yeah.
in a Battle Royal is not a big deal. Or you can win the Royal Rumble, you can go to Mania, you can go title versus title, and you can lose to Charlotte at WrestleMania as the Knockouts champion. Fuck that.
To Charlotte.
Fuck that. Okay, that third option to me is probably the worst out of all of them. So yeah, I think have her go out there with the title. Maybe she gets, I mean, just, maybe she eliminates a couple people back to back to back, and then a couple of the heels team up and toss her over. No harm done. Now, will WWE do that? Will they be looking out for her, championship in any way, shape, or form? Hell
Hell
no.
no.
Vince
Hell.
McMahon probably gives a shit about that belt about as much as he does the replica titles that the fans bring in.
Well, of course. I mean, like I said, I don't know. I will say this: they have created a little bit of buzz from this. I will say that they've created some buzz. But by the way, that's the only buzz that
Yeah.
they that's the only positive buzz they have created from this Royal Rumble. Everything else, I couldn't begin to tell you what's going to happen or what's going on WWE television. I can, however, tell you that the worst decision that they've ever made was hiring Nick Khan to be in the position that he's in, because he clearly doesn't know anything about not just the wrestling business, but even the entertainment business for that matter. He does not know what he is doing in that point. And here's another decision that they've made that has not paid off for them whatsoever. Peacock.
Yeah, I was just gonna get to that. Let's look at a little bit of numbers here. So Comcast recently had their fourth quarter earnings report. I talked to our good friend of the show, Nick McDaniel from Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast about this. So shout out to him. And you know, they have 24.5 million active accounts, but they lost 1.7 billion dollars. The platform itself lost them. That's for the year. They lost $559 million in the last quarter.
Yeah.
They had an adjusted loss of 663 million in 2020, and then 118 million in revenue. So they made some more revenue in 2021, but they lost way more money. Um, Here's the thing. It sounds like to me that maybe they got the subscriber boost they were looking for from the WWE network. But for them to have 24.5 million active accounts, that's active accounts. I don't think that really means subscribers.
Yeah.
So I'm going to see if I can get a total subscribers number here while we're on the air. Yeah, so they have 24.5 million active accounts, but they capped out today, or yesterday actually, the time we're recording this,
Yeah.
at 9 million active subs.
Mm.
So they got 24.5 million accounts, which means those are free trials and shit.
Yeah.
Only 9 million active subscribers. And that's the peak. That means that they hit 9 million for the first time.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you why. Okay. Because, I obviously we've both been in the wrestling business, but I have been in the TV business. And from what I have seen when it comes to streaming or when it comes to anything like that, they should still just be the WWE network. They should have never joined up with Peacock.
Yeah.
And two, if they wanted to get more content out, they shouldn't have just made the deal with Peacock. They should have made it with multiple platforms.
Yeah. And the thing is too, they just made their first deal with Disney yesterday. They're gonna be, but it doesn't affect the U.S. It's for they're gonna be putting their content on Disney's network in like one of the like Indonesian countries or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, but it's very clear that they realize that it's trouble. I hope that NBC doesn't buy WWE. I think them losing all this money on Peacock is probably their main focus right now.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are thinking that NBC is going to buy them. I'm not ruling it out, but I mean, just by comparison, 9 million is terrible for
Yeah.
the amount of content and the licensing and all the royalties and all the money they're paying out for all that content that's on there.
And it has a lot to do with how Peacock has it set up. You can't find anything. You can't find it as easy as you used to. And I think another thing, one of the things that I didn't realize was a big deal until I couldn't do it anymore. So now I think it's a big deal, which is you used to be able to find just matches. You used to be able to like skip towards the match itself. And I like that about the WWE network. You can't do that anymore. Like you literally have to fast forward through the whole damn pay-per-view and it doesn't make any sense. It's like, wait a minute, I don't want to do any of this. I just want to see this one match kind of thing. Like, it's a bad deal. And like I said, if they wanted to, they should have. I they should have not only signed a deal with Peacock, but they should have signed a deal with either the Disney app or Hulu or something to get their content out. But they should have really just kept it the WWE network by themselves. I don't understand why they thought that they needed to go with Peacock. I get, because here's the thing, the subscribers to the Peacock are not necessarily getting it for WWE network. They're
Yeah.
getting it because they want to watch The Office. So
Yeah.
while you might get subscribers or something, you're not getting any views. You're not getting that much views, kind of thing. I think they were getting more views when it was just them.
And you
I,
know,
I
the thing
could be wrong.
they were, I mean, and the thing about this too, you know, when it first came out, WWE Network, a lot of people thought it was going to flop. But because of how well it was put together, there were all these business websites and different websites out there, you know, that you never heard talking about wrestling, saying, hey, WWE came out with their own streaming platform and it's a slam dunk. Now, yeah, it used to have capacity problems, like when there'd be a big pay-per-view, you know, it would have a lot of slowdown because so many people were trying to watch it. That's a good problem to have if you're working on it. And eventually they did kind of iron out some of those issues.
Yeah.
Peacock, to me, the interface is slow, and I have the fastest internet imaginable. You know, it like the interface is slow. Stuff doesn't go up to the high resolution quickly. I mean, it's just not a good
And they've
experience.
got everything in seasons.
Yeah, and
And
I
I'm
don't
saying
like it.
it's like that's not how wrestling works.
Right. Yeah. There's not seasons. So I got a little more information while we're sitting here. So they have 24.5 million active accounts. Only 9 million are paid subscribers. Another 7 million of those are people that have Xfinity, internet, and cable, and they get Peacock with it. So that's just like, hey, these are our customers already, and it's included.
Yeah.
But to put that number, you know, out there for you, sorry about my monitor here. I'm not that pasty. By
I am.
comparison, Netflix 221 million subscribers. Okay.
Yeah.
Amazon Prime 175 mil. Disney Plus 118 million. HBO Max 73.8 million. Paramount Plus has 48 million. Now, granted, I know that some of those are also included in other subscriptions,
Yeah.
but still, man, Hulu at 43 million. I mean, even Apple TV has got 20 million.
Yeah.
It's just not good, dude. Xbox Game Pass has 25 million subscribers.
Yeah.
I mean, what are they doing here, man? What are they
I
doing
don't.
here?
I don't know. It's one of many business decisions that I have questioned from WWE. It's not just that. It's also the complete and utter burial of everything that Triple H worked for in NXT, and they just were just like, nope. We're going to try to change all of that. And I'm not really sure why, because there was nothing wrong with it. The only reason that they failed against Dynamite is because it was clear to the audience that it was an attempt to try to start this war that didn't exist.
Yeah.
There was no problems with NXT and AEW. Now, if you had done Raw versus Dynamite, well, then it might have become a little bit more interesting. Guess what? That didn't happen. AEW was trying to do everything that they could to not be in a war with them at first. But then it's like, well, guess what? We're going to give you a war, but, you know, it didn't make any sense.
And they went from beating Dynamite every now and then to losing on Wednesday night every single week forever to now they lose on Monday night sometimes. Now sometimes their show on Monday that's on at the same time, or that's not even on at the same time as Dynamite, doesn't hit the damn Dynamite viewership because
No.
it's trash. And we talked about the network. they made the network irrelevant because most people had the network to watch NXT. So then they put NXT on live television, and NXT's on live TV.
Yeah.
NXT Raw is on live TV. SmackDown's on live TV. None of that stuff makes it to the network. Well, NXT, but none of that other stuff makes it to the network in any amount of time that would make it worth it to watch it up there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. It's not good. They lost the whole point of the network. Their whole point of the network was to create original content. And they were doing that. They were doing when the network first launched and they had some of the original shows that they had, I thought this is brilliant if you do it in the right way and stuff like that. And they never did it in the right way. And they would cancel stuff before it even started. Like
Yeah.
they become the new Netflix, basically. Like they were Netflix before Netflix. Like they
Yeah.
just started canceling shit. And it's like Legends House. Like I know it might not be the greatest show in the world, but I thought it was pretty entertaining. And I'm sitting there just like, if every year you had different WWE legends, this could be a smash hit kind of thing. But they didn't do that again. Then, Camp WWE and several other things. Like, dude, didn't they have a whole documentary series that they were going to do and they haven't released any of that stuff? The last one that they did was Rob Van Dam. That was amazing, by the way. But they were going to have Lex Luger, they were going to do someone else, and they haven't released those.
What they really should have done, and in my opinion, is they should have negotiated it out eventually to where they could have all their programming on there the same day, like live streaming, just like they do the pay per views.
Yeah.
The other thing about that too is they really should have embraced the podcast culture. I think they didn't understand how big that was going to get.
I agree.
They should have. I mean, imagine if you had something similar to ad-free shows, but it's included in the network. And they try to do that a little bit, but there wasn't a lot of focus on it. I mean, 83 weeks could be on the damn WWE network if they had done it right. It's not like Eric's saying anything on there that he couldn't say. Like, they let Stone Cold talk about Dixie Carter with AJ Styles. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, and here's the thing too. They tried that with something to wrestle. Remember, it was
yeah.
something else to wrestle, and they sort of tried to do that. And guess what? They got involved in it, and Conrad was like, y'all are not getting involved in this. We know what works with our podcast, so let us do what we have with the podcast." Basically, the only difference that they needed was so that when you watched it, they could incorporate the video clips. And it makes it make a little bit more sense because you're watching it and stuff like that. And you don't have to have a bunch of symbols blocking out the thing that makes it almost impossible to tell what's going on in that little itty bitty square. That's just a little thing. But I get why they do that. But and here's the thing for me, WWE has missed the mark the most on this. They are so consumed with everything coming to them that they don't realize how much money they could make by selling half of their content. Not selling it to where they can't use it anymore, kind of thing.
Licensing it.
Licensing it. Yes. Like they license, dude, they're so consumed with licensing names, merchandise and stuff like that, but they have never licensed that like say if they licensed old WCW footage or old NWA footage to the NWA goes and they say, "Hey, we need to use this footage because we're the NWA and we have a whole history, so we'd like to use this in our presentation." And then so you pay WWE for that content, so they make money. Yes, you pay money, but it's going to come back for you as well, kind of thing. It's like it's a win-win situation, but they never do that. And I don't understand why they don't do that. They're so guarded with information or something like that, or just
Vince.
Well, I don't know that, but someone hasn't told him like, "Hey, Vince, you need to license this footage out because that's how we can make even more money and not just license it to one streaming service that isn't going to do jack shit with it.
Yeah, he doesn't care. I'm sure that Triple H tried to explain it to him. I mean, Tony Khan would pay handsomely to be able to use Danielson, Christian, CM Punk to be able to use those video libraries.
Well,
Adam Cole too. I mean,
that too, and
and they're
also,
not making any money off those people right now.
well, think about, just like I said, the NWA. I mean, you don't think Billy Corgan would pay money to use half of that footage in the NWA to help talk about the history of NWA?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, I just think that is a crime. Like, I think it's a complete crime when Ric Flair can't even use his footage for ESPN.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's tragic, but hey, I mean, I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I think Vince is really bound and determined to sell that company before he dies. But honestly, man, on that same note, though, I don't see him ever being able to actually let go of it, and because he's never been able to. He's still just as involved in the day to day as he was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's insane, man. Listen to JR talk about this stuff a lot. It's maddening. And since we circle back to the podcast game, the thing about Jarrett's podcast, a lot of people are like, I've never been a big Jarrett fan, but for some reason I love this podcast. well, let me tell you why you love it. Jeff Jarrett is the only guy in podcasting who has been a promoter, a booker, a wrestler. He's done it all. He's done every angle of it. So he can sit here and talk to you about the promotion of a show. What were the payouts? What did the gate look like? What does that venue typically draw? What kind of audience is typically there? Then he can talk to you about the layout of the matches, and he can talk about setting up a match for that event. Yeah. And then he can talk to you about the long form storytelling. He can talk to you about every aspect of it. That's why his podcast is so damn good. And and kudos to Conrad. I'll get off his nuts here in just a second. But kudos to him for, pressuring Jarrett into this, because the guy, I mean, is still money.
Yeah. Yeah, and he realized that, dude. I think if anyone other than, several other promoters in wrestling, I think the guy that's the most smartest right now in wrestling is Conrad Thompson.
Yeah, I got to give it to him. And I also think that Jarrett is probably on that Forbidden Door list for the Rumble.
I think he is too. And by the way, look, he has never looked cooler in his career than he does right now with this last Outlaw gimmick.
Yeah.
That is amazing. I love it. And speaking of the last Outlaw gimmick that was just featured on a show that we do need to talk about, but before we talk about that, I noticed that there is a picture up above us of a certain individual that made his debut on Dynamite.
You know what's really funny is we almost made it through the whole episode and didn't even talk about it, even though he's sitting right there and I've been staring at him for an hour.
I just noticed that. I was like, maybe we should talk about that.
The great Danhausen debut. I mean, Danhausen had quite a year, man. He was actually supposed to wrestle at Livewire Wrestling in Augusta last year, and then he broke his leg.
No, he broke his leg, Hausen.
Yeah, very bad injury, and couldn't make the show. Ended up going on the Jericho cruise though, so that was good. I mean, it was a roller coaster of a year. Got injured, was supposed to come to AEW, kind of messed up his debut timeline, and then he's healed up, and then they just, people are calling it the anti-debut. There was no hype behind it, and I love that that's how they did it, where, he just comes out from under the ring attached to a chair, and with Adam Cole, no less.
Yes, it was great. Oh, wait, you said Adam Cole? Baby!
and I gotta admit, man, if you'd have told me a couple of years ago that we would see Danhausen and Adam Cole standing face to face on Dynamite, I would have been like, the internet will probably explode, and it did.
It did, and dude, that reaction that he got when he came out of that thing, like, dude, I loved it. First of all, that matchup in its entirety. If you have not seen the Dynamite, I implore you, if you don't have that much time, just go and watch the ladder match and this lights out match. You owe it to yourself to do it on both of the matches. Number one.
They're both
Number
incredible.
I loved the way that they debuted Danhausen and stuff like that. I loved it. Like when he came out, I was like, wait, who is that? And then I saw the face paint, and I was like, no. And it was like, yep, it's Danhausen, and it was great. I love Tony Schiavone's reaction too. He's like, holy hell, Danhausen. What is he doing? And I love when right afterwards Adam Cole just turns and he hits and he goes to hit Orange Cassidy. Cassidy does the DDT, and as Cassidy's doing the DDT, all you see is Danhausen doing this to the fans. He's like, "Bye, y'all."
Yeah, he's just like, I'm out.
He's like, it was great, dude. I loved it. I can't wait to see what they do. But I will say this to AEW right now. If you get Danhausen and you do not take advantage of the production equipment and camera work that you have to make videos with him, then you are wasting your money and time with him.
I agree. They really need to go in. They need to let him talk. And they don't need to do it a lot. Like, it doesn't need to be like, here, let's see another vignette from Danhausen this week. They need to do it sparingly so that it stays special.
Yes.
But go all in with it, man. If they want to do a Danhausen Adam Cole feud, by all fucking means, I am all in. Pun intended. Because that would be incredible. That being said, man, we're over an hour here, so I do want to let's talk about Jon Moxley and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay.
So, so Jon Moxley, just to lay it out for everybody, I kind of realized that something was off with him. I think a lot of people realized that something was off with him over the last year or so, and then we found out that he was going to be taking some time off to go to rehab for alcohol addiction. Kudos to him for doing that and making that choice. And then he's back. And he made a pretty stellar debut the other night. There's been some controversy around this. Have you seen this yet?
Yeah, he said go fuck yourself to a fan.
Well, yeah.
Clear.
It wasn't so much that. Bully Ray had some comments about it where he said he would have liked to have seen an apology from Moxley. And then the internet lost their fucking minds.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever... Well, I say this a little bit tongue-in-cheek. I don't know that I've ever been more disgusted with internet wrestling fans. Because, don't get me wrong, Bully Ray has said a bunch of shit that he deserves that kind of attention for. He said a bunch of off-the-wall shit. He's condoned, beating up people in, like shooting on people in a wrestling match,
Yeah.
Which is unacceptable.
He fucked Ring of Honor when he brought a fan backstage to yell at him.
Yeah, I mean, just a bunch of, he's done a lot of things that I don't agree with. But in this instance, let me break it down. Did Jon Moxley do the right thing by going to rehab? Absolutely. Right? I'm glad he's healthy. I'm glad he's back. He looks way better. However, could he have apologized for not being there for fans that wanted to pay to see him? Yeah. He also could have apologized for phoning it in for a year while he was dealing with his alcohol addiction. This whole idea that he has to come back and just be applauded for going to rehab, which he should be applauded for. But this idea that we have to ignore that he fucked up in the first place, I'm not really up for it. And I think people were way too high, way too hard on Bully Ray over this. What do you think about it?
I don't know what to think. I don't know. Like I get what Bully Ray was saying, and I get what you're saying. I don't think though that. And here's the thing: when I saw Bully Ray say the comments, I was like, well, he didn't really say anything that bad.
Right.
And he actually tried to make it known that, like, look, no disrespect to Mox. I get what he's going through. But yeah, I agree. I don't think Bully Ray should get all of this heat that he's getting. But hey, if he does, run with it, which is what he does.
Yeah, I mean,
It's,
he clearly doesn't give a single shit.
yeah. He clearly doesn't. And here's my thing. I'm pretty sure the two won't mind working together. So GCW,
Yeah.
there's your money angle.
Yeah, by all means. I mean, I think it would be, it would be
Well, look,
pretty cool.
and look, people can say what they want to about the Moxley situation. Look, I mean, I get it. I just look for me personally, I'm not comfortable with commenting on situations like that when it comes to people's personal lives. I mean, because we do have to, remember that not only are these guys, athletes and entertainers and stuff like that, they're human beings, they go through stuff. And Moxley just had a kid with Renee Young, his wife, and everything like that, or Renee Paquette, as her real name is, I guess. And so, like, and I wish all of the best for them on that. So it's like, I don't know. I don't know. I'm just let me put it this way. I'm not comfortable with making comments when it comes to that. I get what you're saying, and I get what Bully Ray is saying. And I do think that they don't need to necessarily be as hard on him. But, like I said, I don't know. And I'm a fan of John Moxley. I always have been. Maybe it's because we look almost like we could be brothers. If they booked an angle, they could have me be his clone.
They could.
They could. They really could. But dude, he is the current GCW champion, of which just had a monumental show. Well, yeah. We'll go with that word. But it was a big show at the Hammerstein Ballroom. Obviously, we're going to go into it for detail at some point. But man, I got to say, this is a company that I did not think that we would be on a podcast talking about them being probably the third most profitable organization outside of the United States. New Japan it is different.
You mean inside the U.S.?
Okay, yeah. Inside the U.S., not outside the U.S. But like, New Japan is profitable in its own way, but that's outside of the U.S. and stuff like that. As far as WWE and AEW are clearly the top. But who's got to come in third right now is GCW. And I mean, they are on fire right now. They are presenting they're not only presenting a different style product, but at times I feel gets a little more realistic than half the stuff you see on AEW or some place like that. Like, and what I mean by that is, dude, I thought MJF was the biggest heel in wrestling. Then Matt Cardona came along and said, "Nah, I am."
Matt Cardona has really found himself. I got to see him live at WrestleCade. Really enjoyed it. And let me say this. Are we not sitting in the early 90s right now? Do we not have the very cartoony, 100% gimmick-driven, poorly booked WWF in the WWE? Do we not have the wrestling is better over here, but the booking is not really that great in AEW?
Which is what happened with Nitro.
Exactly. And GCW is, of course, ECW. It's very similar. It's hard to ignore the similarities. The only difference is today, indie wrestling is way more of a big deal. The Monday Night War era, indie wrestling back then was really bad. Even Jarrett talks about when they started TNA, the indie scene was nowhere near what it is now.
No,
Um, you know,
close.
so it's like it used to be you had upper tier, and then you had a very small middle tier, and then there were shit shows. Now there's still a lot of shit shows, but you have so much in the middle,
I,
and there's
yeah,
so much talent.
I was about to say, see, that's where you have two companies on top again, but instead of one third company, you now have about four or five.
Yeah, you've got Impact, you've got an NWA, you've got MLW.
Uh-huh.
You know,
And then outside of the US, you've got New Japan Pro Wrestling, and then you've got several other places.
yeah,
So
AAA. I mean,
so it's different now.
yeah,
But there is a lot of similarities. And dude, man, I never thought that I would be rooting for GCW, but I love the stuff that's currently going on. First of all, I'm all for any place for the boys and girls to go make money and
right,
and do what they love to do. So I'm all for that. But I've been very impressed with how GCW presents their stuff. There's some stuff where I don't agree, obviously, but there's some stuff where I'm just like, I love the storylines that they do, how they implement the internet and stuff like that, and how they implement the internet, but not in a corny way like the WWE does.
right. And I like GCW from all the aspects you just said. Obviously, me. A lot of that shit does not, it doesn't check with me. I don't. There's a
Yeah.
ton of it I don't like. I don't like John Moxley. He bores me. I just don't like him. But I am very glad. And I don't think Nick Gage is fantastic. But there is an audience for Moxley to do crazy shit. There's definitely an audience for Nick Gage to do crazy shit. It is what it is, man.
But they also present other stuff like I said, the Matt Cardona stuff. Oh my god, that's some of the best stuff right now in my opinion in wrestling. I know people got pissed when the fans at GCW pelted him with stuff, and I get that it was dangerous, but even me, I just got to sit there. I'm like, that is dangerous, but man, is that heat.
Right.
And
That
man,
heat was amazing.
it was. And dude, here's the thing. If he was in danger, he didn't show it. And
Yeah.
he stood there and he took it. Like he was just like, nah, come on, pelt me with stuff. Like he loved it. So I mean, I'm loving the stuff that he is doing right now. There's a lot of stuff that they're doing, and I think that they're going to get better. And I think that Brett Lauderdale, he put out a statement. He's like, look, we did our best business ever. We had incredible numbers and everything like that. But I do feel like I didn't put on the best show that we could have put on. I felt like I let some people down. And it's a learning experience. And that's all you can do. You can learn from that experience. And I think we are going to see the best of GCW yet to come. Like I really do. I think that they're going to continue to grow from here. I think that they have a better business mindset than ECW ever did. Because everyone could talk about ECW till the cows come home. The reason that they fell was that they didn't have a business sense after that. They might have
Right.
had a product knowledge, but they didn't have a business sense.
Right.
So that was the problem from day one. And then, right now, I don't know what the deal is with Ring of Honor. I know that they just announced that Super Card of Honor is returning. I don't know if anyone cares about it or anything like that. And I'm not sure what the future holds for that. But I can tell you right now, GCW is doing great. NWA is getting back to where it was. MLW, it looks like they're doing pretty good business. Although we do need to talk about something real quick in just a minute. But who else did I say? I can't remember who else, but like it looks like they're all doing great. Now, MLW, on the other hand, apparently they have pig-sized balls.
Well, but before we move on, let me just say that I don't think the NWA is doing great. I think they have a great plan.
I
I
mean,
think they're putting on. I think they have a good plan, but I think they're in. I think that they're in trouble financially.
they could be, and I mean, who knows? I don't know what the future holds for all of that, but I will say that they are at least a place that you can go and perform at.
Yeah, and that's really looking at it from the boys' standpoint. But if you can look at it from a business standpoint, I don't see the business model paying off, and you know that I wanted it to because
Yeah,
who's in the NWA? Darius fucking Lockhart, the
yeah.
guy.
Which I have
That's
not
it.
seen him yet on NWA Power or anything.
Yeah, I don't know if he's been on Power yet, but he was on the pay per view.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, that's right. That's right.
so
He was on the pay-per-view. I mean, I definitely wanted them to succeed because I love the YouTube show idea and I want to see more of that and stuff like that. And look, it's clear that they got halted because of the pandemic. They
right.
got screwed because of that because they were on a roll as well. Can they get back to where they were? Who knows? But GCW right now is on fire. The NWA looks like they're trying to get back to where they were. MLW, I don't know how their business is right now, but I mean,
It's about to get a lot worse.
well, that's true. So I don't know. We'll see. Like, is the wrestling bubble gonna burst?
Dude, Jerry McDevitt is going to rip them to fucking pieces.
Yes, he is. That's what I thought of when I saw it. I was like, oh my god. He's like,
I was like, did you guys watch Dark Side of the Ring? Like, do you just? I mean, I get it. I think they have a case, right? I think they have a legitimate case, and I'm happy to see somebody not putting up with Vince McMahon's 1970s fucking mobster promoter fucking carny bullshit, right? Like I that's fine. Like, yeah, he legitimately tried to fuck with you, so sue him. Except
he's
you
got
don't.
McDivitt.
He has Jerry McDevitt, and you don't have millions and millions of dollars to have a long, drawn out legal battle. It's
Nope.
not just Jerry McDevitt. Jerry McDevitt is the tip of the iceberg, and then he has an army of lawyers and paralegals that will flood you with all kinds of shit
Yep.
around the clock. You can't afford this legal battle. Now, if you win, sure, because then WWE has to pay for your legal fees. But you're not going to win
No.
because Jerry McDevitt is going to make sure you go out of business fighting him.
Yeah. Yeah.
They
No. I agree.
they're done. I mean, they may not go out of business from this, but they will be lucky if they don't. This is the dumbest shit that I've seen anyone pull because, like, once again, I agree with them. But I don't think the case is solid enough to where Jerry fucking McDevitt's not going to destroy them. I just don't. If you look at some of the shit he's gotten them out of, those were way more concrete than what MLW is claiming. Which, if you're listening and not familiar with it, they're basically trying to say that WWE kept them from getting a venue.
Yeah.
And I'm like, unless you have this conversation on fucking videotape, Jerry McDevitt is going to kill you.
Yeah.
End of story. He's going to slaughter you in court.
Exactly. And probably one of the most entertaining people I've seen in an interview, by the way, was Jerry McDevitt on Dark Side of the Ring season 3.
Maybe Dark Side of the Ring season 11, he can come back on and talk about this lawsuit after it's over.
He might.
Yeah. Anyway, man, we've been on here for a bit. This has been a great return. This is the kickoff, season 4, baby. Here we are. We got a lot of entertaining stuff coming up. I'm involved in a couple projects that I'm really excited about. I was just recently on an episode of Superhero Homies, our good friends over there. If you like really nerdy shit, give them a listen. They cover Marvel, DC, The Witcher, which is I just reviewed season 2 for them. We're gonna cover the Book of Boba Fett that's airing right now for Star Wars. When that's over with, we're gonna be covering that in a couple weeks. Um, so yeah, there's a lot going on. I'm helping a friend of mine. He's going to start a Dungeons and Dragons. I don't know if it's going to be a podcast per se, but it's going to be sort of a. It's going to be themed around that. So he's going to be doing stuff on TikTok and on YouTube. So I'm going to be talking about that probably next time we come on. So yeah, man, a lot of stuff going on. Been really busy, but I'm super excited to finally have time to get back to doing this.
Yeah, man. It's been a while since we've been able to do this and everything like that, and I'm glad that we're getting back into it because, like you said, there's been so much going on. I, as well, am also looking to launch a certain podcast. Maybe. I'm not going to say too much, but maybe.
Okay, all right. Well, by all means, man. Well, everybody, thanks for listening. This has been your state of wrestling, and also, as you know, this has been an Evolved Review.